Hey folks, it's been a while since I've mentioned a very well known fact regarding myself on the channel. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is my favourite video game of all time. Not just Zelda game, but video game. I adore every single thing about this game, even its super long tutorial segment. I love it. I'm always trying to come up with ideas regarding the game, but sometimes it's difficult given the age of the game in regards to finding topics that either haven't been discussed heavily already, or topics that are just interesting enough. I mean, everything can be subjective, and everyone can have different thoughts on the same thing, but it just doesn't really always work out that way. Anyway, I'm rambling. I had an idea the other day that I'd actually thought about a while back, but never really thought of making a video about it. That was until today. That idea being discussing what else is in the mysterious Twilight realm beyond the Palace of Twilight. For context, in case you don't know, in this game there is a parallel dimension to Hyrule known as the Twilight realm, a dark, shadowy place inhabited by the Twilight. I don't really know the pronunciation, I'll probably do both throughout the video. Don't at me. There is a lot of lore to this place, which we'll get to shortly. Basically, in the game, we can only explore the palace, but I can clearly see more out there. What exactly are these further islands, and potentially even more currently unseen that lie beyond the view of the palace, hidden within the shadows? That is today's topic, the possibly lost lands of the Twilight realm. Get yourself comfy wherever you are, because this is going to be quite the journey that you don't want to miss. But before departing into the dark, mysterious Twilight realm, be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them in to get featured right here. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, it really helps the channel out. And let's get into this one. Entering this shadowy plane of existence can be done, and only done, through the Mirror of Twilight. Upon venturing in, we find ourselves at the Palace of Twilight, the centerpiece of this mysterious land, the place in which the monarchy rules. It consists of the main plaza, which also contains the soul shrines for the soul orbs, we'll get to them later, the only source of light in here, provided by these pure energy orbs, and of course, the palace itself. This is all that we can access as the player, but this likely wasn't how things looked prior to the events of the game. A little bit of history here. Before the events of Twilight Princess, the Twilight Realm was actually a fairly peaceful place, ruled by the Twilight Princess, Midna. Her kingdom was absolutely fine. Then came along Zan, who overthrew her and took over. A few things happened. Ganondorf gets banished to this realm, and bada bing, bada boom, Mr. Worldwide as I step in the room. Zan and Ganondorf team up, the Twilight Realm is turned into a horrible place for its people, and we find it in that state. There is a ton of backstory here, and it could take a while to discuss it all in full details. I'll reveal more here and there when necessary, but I've also linked below the Zelda wiki page that can tell you literally everything. I recommend checking it out if you're interested. Anyway, we find the corrupt and overrun Palace of Twilight. Residents of the realm turned into mutated forms of themselves. We can help them by returning the soul orbs from these two buildings on the side, but this alone shows the damage done by Zan. Speaking of which, he can be found on the palace throne, which leads to one of the coolest boss battles ever, by the way. Aside from that, looking around, you'll notice that the realm is like a sort of void. It's made up of floating islands. Huh, sounds familiar. We can see a few in the far distance, but can't really make out what they are. I guess that they are likely just homes for the Twilight, or maybe some sort of related buildings, I don't know. How exactly do we get there from here? And how much more is beyond the palace? I find it hard to believe that it's just these few islands. What lies beyond the shadows? Well, to tackle the latter, what could be beyond this palace? If we consider the fact that this realm is considered a parallel to Hyrule, you could interpret that, and I do, as the same size, give or take. Obviously a lot of this is just going to be a big void, but when you take into account the fact that this place has its own monarchy, something that's in place to rule a large group of people, just like Hyrule. If we look at Hyrule in this game from the view of the castle, it's just the centerpiece to a much larger kingdom. There's a good chance the Twilight Realm is similar. We should also take into account that the Twilight Realm is filled with dark clouds and shadows. It's much more difficult to see far into the distance. We see a few islands that are nearby, but I bet you there is much more beyond this. I mean, just look at this. You can't see what's beyond that. There is more out there, but we can't see it. I even have a little bit of a lead to go off of that could possibly prove that there is more out there. Now, whilst not always the most reliable in some areas, the Hyrule Historia book does contain some very interesting content regarding the Zelda games up to Skyward Sword. In the Twilight Princess department, we can find some very interesting content. Under the Twilight section, we find concept art and unused ideas, one of which is artwork for a Twilight town. It shows us a resident of the realm exploring an abandoned town. The text below tells us that this is a daily sight for many residents, having to sneak into an abandoned village for food and goods. This tells us a lot about what could have been included, but for the sake of this video, we'll be viewing it as if it is there. You know why? Well, that's because Twilight Princess was supposedly a bit rushed and time pressed towards the end of development, meaning things like this were very possibly planned to be included, but had to be cut in the end. Anyway, theoretically thinking that these areas exist in terms of lore beyond the palace, which, you know, they surely have to, the impact of Zant's corrupted takeover has really taken a toll on the people of Twilight, evident by the caption. A citizen forced to sneak around for their food and goods, in an abandoned village no less. It's presumably overrun with shadow beasts and or other threats, hence why they have to sneak. The way they've written daily life really does indicate that this is during the time frame of the game, during the darker times of this realm under Zant's corrupted rule. Anyway, this concept art alone proves to us that it was 100% conceptualized to be a part of the game, and if there was a Twilight Town, presumably there would be more. I mean, maybe villages, I don't know about a city, but there's definitely got to be more. I believe. I mean, we do see a little bit more already, so we've made it clear that there is pretty likely a lot more out there, or at least something out there, at least a town or so. But now comes the question of how exactly would these residents travel from island to island? And in the case of what we see from game, from the palace to these islands. These people likely don't live here at the palace, and in the odd events that they do, or in the odd events I get that comment saying, oh well, they do, I could easily ask you how those who live over here get to the palace. Well, the answer can actually be found at the palace itself. All throughout our journey through this dungeon, we see this energy-based technology used to traverse the three buildings, the two shrine-related ones and the main palace itself. It glows in a sort of light blue-greenish hue, like wired framework, but made out of this energy. This mysterious energy flows through the architecture, powers fences, doors, and even mechanics. But it also flows within the Twilight people themselves, which is another thing to discuss another day. But the other thing it powers is platforms, both inside and out. I don't think that it would be too far-fetched to suggest that the means of transport used here could be much larger versions of these platforms, used to go from island to island. Now I will admit, there is also the chance that they use the large Twilight cargo rocks, but personally I feel like that with this extremely advanced technology, they'd opt for that over a transport method that can realistically take one at a time. In the bigger picture, this energy technology would be far more efficient, both for moving large groups of residents, but also cargo. It just does more. So if that's what I think, where exactly is this transporting technology? Well, we can see smaller versions in the plaza, powered by the soul orbs, and within the buildings, but where would the bigger ones be? Well, honestly, I think they'd be located on either side of the palace. I mean, you can kind of see where it would be. Maybe even this big balcon? A balcon? That's German. Maybe even this big balcony would have a transport platform. I don't know where precisely, that's not what's important here. What is, where is this technology? Why don't we see it? Well, I believe that it would have been present prior to Zant's corrupted takeover. I mean, think about it. When he overthrew Midna, he did it all with ill intent. He was only thinking for himself. He ruined what was a peaceful place. He hid away the soul orbs, draining the realm of light. He mutated the residents into awful forms, and he even spread a lot of this into Hyrule, making it a hellish place. It's not unlikely that he did a lot more unseen to us to make life miserable here. I mean, prior to the whole takeover, he was a servant in the royal palace with the belief that he'd be next in line. But the royals had their doubts about Zant. They were wary of his ambition to conquer and have history repeat itself. To explain what I mean by history repeat itself real quick, years and years ago, 3 bad Hylians known as the Interlopers tried to take control of the Sacred Realm and Triforce. They were caught, had their powers stripped from them, and prosecuted in the form of being banished to the Twilight Realm. These 3 criminals would be the early beginnings of what would become the Twilight race, due to how they adapted to the setting of their new home. Up until Zant, the Twilight were peaceful people who recognized their past as bad. Zant was planning to bring this chaos back. For this reason, Midna was given the throne. This made Zant angry. His trust of the royal family was broken, and he began to hate the fact that the Twilight were trapped in this realm. Basically, everything was fine, Zant is greedy, and that got the better of him. He went to seek answers elsewhere. Then, a little later, Ganondorf gets banished to the Twilight Realm. Zant and Ganondorf team up, they share powers to break free and begin conquering Hyrule, Ganondorf's wish, and Zant gets his wish of ruling the Twilight Realm. That is as brief as I can make it. I'll link more down below if you want to go deeper into that history. Anyway, I believe part of Zant's malicious takeover was not only mutating his own people and all the other horrible stuff I mentioned, but further making life a living hell for them by cutting off their means of transport, making whatever is beyond the palace and behind the thick layers of shadows lost lands of the Twilight Realm. Families, friends, all cut off from each other thanks to Zant. He stripped the realm of its power and evidently made life awful for everybody inside. We even see Midna herself feel the pain of the people as the true ruler of the realm. Zant did horrible things, but thankfully it didn't end all bad. The game concluded with Midna entering the Twilight Realm in her full form and further breaking the Mirror of Twilight in the transition between realms, thus cutting off the only tie between the world of light in the realm of Twilight. Although no longer accessible, we can assume that Midna has things back to how they used to be, a thriving, prospering, happy, and once again, peaceful Twilight Realm, fixing these roots to the lost lands we can't see in game, but can heavily assume are there. My final thoughts on the quote, biggest mystery of the Twilight Realm, is that I personally believe there to be much more out there, much more that we'll likely never see given how the game ended, but what do you think? Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Is there more to the mysterious Twilight Realm than seen in game? I certainly believe there is, and I'm interested to hear what you think. Thanks a ton for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure to drop a like and consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. If you haven't already, be sure to hop in our Discord server through the link below, follow me on Twitter and Instagram to keep up to date, and as always, a huge special thank you goes out to all of my supporters across Patreon and YouTube. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining, and your name at the end of every video, then consider supporting. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.